Hey friends, come with me on a journey through time and space. Let's talk about one of the most misunderstood movements in Catholic history, Jansenism. It's not a band, it's not a perfume, it's a 17th century spiritual uprising that quietly cracked the foundations of European power and may have lit the fuse for the French Revolution. So, what was Jansenism? Jansenism started with a bishop named Cornelius Jansen. He was obsessed with St. Augustine and he believed that grace was everything. Basically, you don't earn salvation. You are either chosen by God or you're not, period. Sound familiar? Yes, correct. It is a lot like Protestant Calvinism, but Catholic. Ultimately, the idea is that asking for forgiveness for your sins was not possible. It was already too late. It was about living within truth, living within the commandments of God as a trustworthy and kind person. It was about cutting out the jargon of the priests and the hierarchy about being able to receive forgiveness from your local priest. You could only receive forgiveness from God and by being a virtuous, kind, and graceful person. But this is where it gets juicy. Jansenism started to attract mystics, artists, intellectuals, and women. A lot of women. These people were looking for something deeper than the ritual heavy and politics infused Catholic Church. Essentially, the Catholic Church and the king, in this case of France, were deeply enmeshed, and a lot of their religious doctrine and religious views were deeply rooted in political manipulation. So, of course, many common people were looking for a real spiritual connection. They saw value in the Bible and could feel that their priests, the Pope, and their king were essentially full of shit. So these people and folks weren't protesting the church outright, but in a sense they were by stepping out, by stopping to attend regular church services and starting to dive into their connection with God and reading the Bible alone, having their own opinions and connection with the spiritual realm. So, this in essence formed tight knit spiritual circles, tight knit communities, which of course the priests, the Pope, and the king despised. A big thing that very much concerned them was that the Jansenists were not making confessions. They were not giving in to regular indulgences. And the Pope was shook. So, very quickly and unsurprisingly, Jansenists were condemned for heresy. Some were even excommunicated from the church, and some were literally hunted and sentenced to death for defying the Catholic Church. But, like any good underground movement, the persecution only made them that much more appealing, and people were converting by the hundreds. Fascinatingly, their biggest hub was a place called Port Royal, a kind of radical convent that turned into a spiritual academy. Women were there teaching, translating, and writing theology. It truly was a punk movement. It was anti establishment and anti rules, and truly about decolonizing the relationship that people had with God. And mind you, this is Europe in the 1700s. That is just not gonna fly. All of this started to fuel larger ideas about personal consciousness, about authority, about freedom, about morality. And those ideas didn't stay in the church, they bled into politics. Voltaire even read some of their theologists' texts. Enlightenment thinkers were quoting Jansenists. And by the time the French Revolution came, the idea that you could say no to power, you could even say no to God's power, These seeds had been planted. Interestingly enough, one of the main priests who eventually became a Jansenist died before he was 60, and hundreds of people flocked to his grave and allegedly were receiving healings. They were having seizures. People who were blind were beginning to see. People who were paralyzed were beginning to walk. And the French government closed off this cemetery and made it illegal to visit because they were afraid that there would be a revolution. Unsurprisingly, you've probably never heard of Jansenism. So, if you have never heard of it and you want to learn more, it's so much more than religious drama. It is a spiritual and social blueprint for rebellion. If you want to get a deep dive, check out my podcast. I have a full episode. Thanks for listening in, babe.